All right, welcome back to the next edition of this element of interior design, and we're talking about pattern today. So pattern gives the visual appeal to a room. It's going to add depth, texture, and personality. So is your personality very serious? Are you very fun and bubbly? Are you sort of eclectic? So these are all of the things that you're going to be able to read someone based on their space, based on the patterns that are used. Are you modern? Are you traditional? Are you somewhere in between or all over the place? So pattern is really important for expressing your style and expressing your personality. So there are 6 parts to patterns that we're going to talk about. So color, scale and proportion, texture, I have my notes here, pattern, style, pattern placement, and then balance. So the very first one is color. So we've talked about color before. It sets the mood, it creates the overall ambiance, it sets the stage. Okay, it gives the personality of the room that you're in, and there's different color schemes we talked about many weeks ago, and if you do an analogous or a monochromatic, it's going to be a little more harmonious and a little more calm and serene and subdued. If you have something that's more complementary and higher contrast between the colors in the patterns, you're going to have a lot more excitement. So let's see. When we're using patterns, we want to consider the hues that we're using. So here's one with a couple different hues. Now, hues, remember, is the color name. So you want to think about the hues that are being used in the pattern, and then also making sure that those patterns are complementary and they contrast, because that's just fun. That's the fun part of design. Okay, so the second one, scale and proportion. All right, so I have 2 samples here. Scale and proportion, just like in general in your space, is really important, because think of a really tiny space. We'll think of a laundry room, because laundry rooms tend to be, on the smaller side. Now, there are some really great, big, huge, luxurious, lovely laundry rooms, but in this case, we're going to think of just a small laundry room. We've got a washer and a dryer and maybe a sink and some cabinets, but maybe it's, like 6 by 6. Pretty small. 6 by 8, not too big. So imagine you have a gigantic pattern like this one in there. Maybe you have a window, and so it's your window covering. You have this gigantic pattern. Now, if this is the size of your window and you have your window covering, what is the pattern? You don't even get to see it and appreciate it, because the scale of the pattern is so large that it can't be appreciated. It gets lost because it's so big in such a small space. On the converse, let's think of a gigantic, lovely 2-story living room, great room, gigantic windows. It's just amazing. It's expansive. Now, it's well designed because you use timeless designs. Okay, so this is the pattern that we have for the windows. As you can see, it's kind of small. Now, it is subtle, I will give you that, but think of a small polka dot or a small floral or something on the very small scale. You've got 20-foot windows and you've got this tiny little pattern. You're not even going to be able to see the pattern because it's so small and it's such a large, tall space. And maybe the windows go all the way across and you've got stationary panels in between just to help frame out the windows. You're going to lose the pattern. You aren't going to be able to appreciate all of that the pattern has to offer. Color, texture, the pattern itself. And so scale and proportion is really important for patterns. If this happens to be the pattern on the gigantic windows, you get to appreciate it. And now if this went into the laundry room, it would be much more scaled in proportion to that space. So think of large scale, large room, small scale, small room. All right, and texture. So just in these two examples, this one tends to be a little more visually textural, and this one here is much more smooth. It's just a nice woven flat weave fabric. There's not a lot of texture to it. Visually there's a pattern, but texturally it's very smooth. So in combining patterns that are rough and knobby to something that's maybe smooth and sleek, and maybe it's shiny, maybe it's dull, but there's not a lot of, difference between, like smooth and all of those kinds, and then the textures, and then combining those two things together. So then you have this contrast between the texture that is smooth and the texture that is knobby. And maybe it's not knobby, maybe it is, I've seen some really great fabrics that almost look sandy. Now there would be a certain application for that. You probably would not use that like on a throw pillow, obviously. But that kind of texture visually, as you're looking in your space, you can see that this has got a lot of texture and this is very smooth. So combining those together is going to create a visually dynamic space, and it's going to be very inviting. Okay, so 4, we have pattern style. All right, so this happens to be geometric. This happens to be floral. There are also houndstooth. There are solid patterns. And then we have stripes, and we have abstract, and we have a damask. We have multiple different types of patterns, and so mixing those together, having solids and stripes and florals, if that's your thing, creating those dynamic duos and trios and quadruplets of patterns within a space, again with different colors and different textures. All of these layers go together to make your space really, really appealing using patterns, and then the other elements of design that go hand in hand to create these overlapping elements of design and these principles of design. So as you've noticed over the weeks, it's not just one piece. They all overlap and they all intermingle. Okay, so 5 is pattern placement. So you can have pattern on your walls and on your ceilings. If you've seen like a cove ceiling, tray ceiling, all kinds of ceiling details out there, there's really fantastic ones. And you can also have pattern on your floor. I just did a project where we added a wood detail. Instead of having a rug in the dining room, we did a contrasting wood detail around, and it was inlaid into the wood floor. So having pattern on multiple different surfaces is ideal, and having a really bold wallpaper and then having a very neutral sofa with a very subtle pillow is really appealing. And it can be the converse, where you have this really bold, gigantic statement focal point sofa fabric, and then maybe a solid pillow and a subtle wallpaper or wall covering. It wouldn't have to be paper. It could be sisal. It could be a variety of different things. And so having these patterns, again, just layered in is ideal. Okay, so the last one, 6, is balance. So having a balance between, I have symmetrical and asymmetrical. So let's say we have a solid sofa and we have a pillow with this fabric, and maybe it's a gigantic, or maybe it's a pattern like this, but it's a smaller scale, having these together. So this would be, maybe these are on one sofa, and then we have complementary pillows with patterns and colors and styles similar but different on the other sofa. So that is where we have the asymmetrical pieces of balance in a living room. And then where we have symmetrical would be, we have this pillow and this pillow on this side and this side. So pattern is really great. It's a great way to play and add interest to your space. So pillows and throws are really great, easy ways to add color and add pattern and add contrast, add all of these different elements into your space so that you can have fun with it and try it out. So that is your design tip for this week. Again, I am Melissa, the principal interior designer and the creative director at Timeless Designs. We love working with busy professionals and custom builders because you're busy. We love design, and so we like to take design off your plate. We go source all of the best selections, finishes, furniture, decor, all of the great things, and then we present those to you, and then we take it from there. So you really get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the process while we do all of the work for you. So until the next episode, happy homes.